Okay, so good morning. Today's daf is daf Mem Tet. We finished the sixth chapter and begin the seventh chapter of Sanhedrin. We are in the middle of discussing the encounter between Binayahu, who was King Melech Shlomo HaMelech's agent in going to kill Yoav. And Yoav had killed Asael and Amasa previously and had rebelled on some level against David Hamelech, and we talked about that encounter because the question is who, was it potentially evidence for one side or the other with respect to who gets the property of the spoils of a rebellious individual. Meaning, if somebody rebels against the king, does the king, when the king kills that person, does that person's possessions go to the king, or do they go to the king, to that person's heirs? And we said that Yoav had run to the Beis Hamikdash in order to sort of save himself, or at least save himself temporarily. And um, and the thought is that he was going to the Beis Hamikdash in order to plead to the Sanhedrin, and so that he would be killed not based on Moer B'Malchus, but for another reason. And so as a result, his possessions would go to his heirs. But then we said, no, he's just trying to live a little longer. And so he was just trying to escape the immediate death penalty. In any event, that having raised that, the Gemara is now going to talk about this story a little bit more. Now, I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. I will note that I had there were two questions that were asked yesterday, but I don't see Ken on the line at the moment, so I'm going to hold them off for now. Well, you know what? Maybe we'll just go through them in any event. The two questions that Ken asked yesterday. First, he asked about a burial plot that was used for one person, but the deceased was then reinterred somewhere else. So may that plot be used, or is it considered prohibited to benefit from? Because there's no question that when it comes to the shrouds that a person is buried in, if that person gets removed from those shrouds for any reason, and now those shrouds are left, then you do not, in fact, use them again. They are absolutely prohibited to benefit from. But so what about a grave site? Well, on Daf Mem Zayin Amabet, we saw that people would take dirt from Rav's grave to heal themselves. And people asked Shmuel, is this permitted? And Shmuel said it is permitted because earth from the ground cannot become prohibited. For example, let's say you have the mountain that's now at a controversy, right? Denali Mountain. So that that mountain, if that mountain were worshipped by idol worshippers as if it were a god, and I don't know whether the Denali, the people who called it Denali as opposed to Mount McKinley would have, said that. But in any event, let's assume for the moment that they would. Does that mean that you're not allowed to climb the mountain? Right? Because you're not allowed to, if, for example, somebody were to worship this table, you wouldn't be allowed to use this table anymore, assuming that it belonged to them. So do we say the same thing about a mountain? And the answer is no, we don't say the same thing about a mountain because it's connected to the ground, and therefore we will not say that mountain now becomes somehow prohibited. And similarly, even though obviously we're not dealing with idol worship, we're going to say the same thing about the usage of a grave. So, of course, you should ask your local Orthodox posek if you actually have this question, if the question goes from theoretical to practical, but that's the answer to Ken's first question. Ken's second question, he asked about the right of a king to confiscate property based on our earlier learning in the text of Shmuel 1, Perek Chet, Pasuk Yudalid. It says that, Shmuel is warning the Jewish people about all the bad things that a king can do, that a king's going to take your best fields, your vineyards and olive trees, and present them to his servants. So this language could potentially be read as confiscate, the Rambam understands that the king is obligated to pay for these items. So a king doesn't have the ability, he has the ability to force a sale. He does not have the ability to just take. And the reason that this was relevant was because we were saying that Achav killed Navos potentially in order to get his field, and in order to make sure that he was able to obtain it according to the rabbis, he made sure to accuse him of being rebellious against the king. And so as a result, he would get all of his possessions. Now, of course, Rabbi Yehuda said that, who says that, even somebody who's rebellious against the king, the property goes to the person's heirs, to the perpetrator's heirs. He said, no, well, they were just relatives. And Achav killed all the relatives before him in order to be able to inherit. And that would be why he would be able to inherit. And again, the point is that he would not be able to simply take it away. Now, as Charlie noted yesterday, the ability to tax often can be almost equivalent to the ability to take. But the point is he would still need to have imposed a tax in order to be able to do it. But according to the Rambam, Achav could not simply confiscate the property of Navos without paying for it. And that's why he would need to kill Navos either as a traitor, according to the rabbis who said that the property of executed traitors goes to the king, or to kill Navos and his sons in order to be the next heir, which again was what the Rebbe Yehuda says. So that's two quick points about the back. Now we go back into the discussion of Yoav, who was Shlomo HaMelech's, who Shlomo HaMelech killed on the deathbed advice of his father David HaMelech. And we pick up with the end of the first line of Memtet Amud Aleph. So Asyua LeYoav Dainei. So they brought Yoav to the Sanhedrin and in order to judge him. They took him away from the Beit HaMikdash. Amarle. So they said, Binyayahu said to Yoav, my time a katalte la'avner. Why did you kill Avner? Amarle, gol adam de Asael havai. I was the avenger of blood for Asael, because Asael is Yoav's brother. Avner had killed Asael. I think I said it the wrong way. I think I said Asael earlier. I meant Avner and Amasa, that are the people that Yoav killed, Avner and Amasa. But in any event, Avner's brother Asael was killed. I'm sorry, Yoav's brother Asael was killed by Avner, and so as a result, I was taking revenge, and so I was allowed to do it. But Asael rodev hava. But one second, it only works to take revenge if the killing was an unjustified killing. But Asael was being pursued. Asael was pursuing Avner. And so Avner had a justification for killing Asael. Because if you're being chased, you can kill the person who's chasing you, if there's person being chased to be killed. Amar Le, Yoav said, no, he did not need to kill him. He could have maimed him. And so as a result, that's why he deserved to die. So Amar Le, lo yachol le, he couldn't have done that. So Amar Le, Yoav says back, yes, he could have. Hashda bedovin chamishis kivein le. When Avner killed Asael, he was very, very precise about his location. He struck him specifically in the fifth rib, Diksiv vayakeu Avner ba'acharei hachanis el hachomesh, that he hit him with the back of the spear at the chomesh. So for Amar Rabbi Yochanan, bedofen chamishit, it means the fifth rib. That's where the gallbladder and the liver are suspended. That's where they are in the body. So lo yachile. And so if he could have done that, couldn't he certainly he should have been able to actually get him in a limb and maim him so that he wouldn't be able to chase him any longer, rather than actually kill him. So Amar Le, Nazel Avner. Fine. Let's put aside Avner. Maybe you had a justification for killing him. My timer, Katalte la Amasa. Why'd you kill Amasa? So Amrle, Amasa Morid b'Malchus Hava. Amasa had done something against David HaMelech, and there was being a traitor, and that's why I killed him. Diksiv Vayomer HaMelech El Amasa. David HaMelech said to Amasa, Hazek li es ish Yehuda shloshes yamim. Gather for me the men of Yehuda within 3 days. But Yelech Amasa lahazik es Yehuda v'yocher. But then when he did so, it took him longer than 3 days to gather the people. So he violated the king's commandment. And so as a result, I killed him as a traitor. So Amrle, Amasa, Akin, Varakin, Darash. But second, Amasa had good reasoning for doing what he did. And you didn't give him an opportunity to justify himself because he was using the words ach and rak that are in the Torah to figure out that actually he was supposed to wait on it because he found that the people in Yehuda were learning some kind of Talmudic item, an Amar, and he said to himself, Ksiv, the Torah says, Kol ish asher yamre es picha. Actually, is this this is from Yoshua, not from the Torah. It's from Sefer Yoshua, which is where we learn a lot of the rules associated with kings. Kol isha sher yamra es picha. Anybody who rebels against your word, your command, v'lo yishma es devarecha l'chol asher titzaveh yumat. And anybody who does not hear all the things that you say, that person should die. So that is the rule that you have to listen to the king. I might have thought that this means that even if the person is learning Torah, they have to stop learning Torah and fulfill the king's words. So Talmud Lomar, Rak Chazak Ve'amatz. But the Torah then continues, the Navi then continues and says, but you should be strong and have good courage. And so as a result, as Rashi says, this is Rashi, end of the first wide line of the Rashis on Mem Teram and Aleph, Achen v'Rakin Darish, Asher Chan Shematzan Shahayu Asukim b'Meseches. Again, as we noted, that Amasa found that the people of Yehuda were studying Gemara below Ratzel Batlan, and he didn't want to cause them to stop learning. As we're going, as we just saw, that you're not considered to have rebelled against the king. Because the Navi says only you should be strong and of good courage. Rakin, right? This rak, miutin, it excludes something. And what does it come to exclude? She'im ba hamelech vatel divrei Torah, that if the king comes to stop somebody from learning, ein shomin lo, you don't listen to him. And so as a result, it was proper for Amasa not to try and gather everybody too quickly. So now, as a result, either as a result of that, or as in addition, Elahu Gavra Moed b'Malchus Hava. So the bottom line is that you, Yoav, are the one who was Moed b'Malchus. You were the one who was the traitor, not Amasa. Diksiv, because what did you see that it seemed like you did? V'hashemua ba ad Yoav, that the news came to Yoav. Ki Yoav nata acharei Adoniyah, v'acharei Avshalom lo nata. That Yoav actually fell in line with the rebellion of Adoniyah. Adoniyah was David HaMelech's son, who rebelled at the end, and tried to take the rulership away from Shlomo. And Yoav went with him, even though he knew that David HaMelech had wanted Shlomo to be the king after him. So first of all, even though he did not follow Avshalom had happened earlier in David HaMelech's life, that his son Avshalom had tried to rebel against him. So my lo nata, what does it mean that Yoav did not go after Avshalom? But the point is, Amar Rav Yehuda Shabi Lintos. The reason that it says it is that he didn't go after him, is that he really did want to go after Avshalom, the lo nata, but he didn't actually do it. My time alone nata, why didn't he go after Avshalom? So two potential answers. Amar Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar suggests Adayan Luchis Shel David Kayemes. David was still very strong at the time. And so as a result, he was worried that if he had to deal with David HaMelech directly, then he was afraid. And Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina Amar, Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Chanina, says, "Adayin itztagnine shel David kayamin." The astrologers or followers of the stars of David were still alive. Now, who are those? Dam Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. That is Arba Meos Yuladim Hayulolu David. David himself had 400 young people that were working for him. Kulan b'nei Yifas Toar Hayu. All of them were the children of Eshes Yifas Toars. Those are women who are taken captives. Umegadle Verloris Hayu. And they would, have long flowing hair. Umahalkin Barashe Hagayasos Hayu. And they rode at the very head of the troops, meaning they were very brave. The Hain Bale Agrofin Shel David. And they were known as the strong men of David. So either he was afraid of, Yoav was afraid of David himself, or he was afraid of David's army. But the bottom line is that's why he did not rebel after when Avshalom did his rebellion. But the bottom line is he rebelled in connection with Adonijah. Upliga de Rabbi Abba bar Akana. This fact that the concern was about the fact that David was reliant on that David had these 400 troops. It suggests that this is different from what Rabbi Abba bar Kahana says. Rabbi Abba bar Kahana, Ilmale David lo asa Yoav milchama. Without David, there would be no success in Yoav going to war. Yoav lo asik David b'Torah. And without Yoav being able to go to war, David wouldn't have been able to learn Torah. Basically, there is a partnership between those who are learning Torah and those who are going out to war. Diksiv vayihi David osem mishpat utzdaka l'chol amo. That David, performed judgment and was righteous with all of the people. And immediately thereafter, the next pasuk, right? So it's pasuk Perek Shmuel Bet, Perek Chet, pasuk Tes Vav and Tes Zayin, and pasuk Tes Vav says that David rendered judgment, and the pasuk Tes Zayin says Vayoav ben Sruya al Hatzava, and it was Yoav who was the son of Tzruya who was over the army. So the juxtaposition shows that one and the other were reliant on each other. So Ma'atam David Osa Mishpat V'Tzedakah L'Chol. Why? How was David able to do the judgment and righteousness for the people? Mishum di Yoav al Tzava, because Yoav was over the army. Ma'atam Yoav al Tzava, and why was Yoav able to be successful in being over the army? Mishum David Osa Mishpat V'Tzedakah L'Chol, because David was out there learning. So the bottom line is that we see that according to Rabbi Abba bar Kahana, David was not reliant on these 400 strong men. He was reliant on Yoav. Now, it could be that Yoav was reliant on this 400 strong men, but the bottom line is that the 400 strong men seem to, according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina, report to David HaMelech, whereas according to Rav Yehuda, they didn't necessarily report to David HaMelech because Yoav was the chief of the army. In any event, Vayetze Yoav me'im David. So when Yoav went out from, but the bottom line is that Yoav was considered rebellious because he followed Adonijah and therefore was subject to the death penalty. So, but we go now back to the discussion between Yoav and Avner, the original case of that was brought by Benayahu against Yoav. But this is what actually happened. Vayetze Yoav me'im David. Yoav went out from David, Vayishlach malachim acharei Avner, and he sent messengers after Avner. Vayashivu oso mi Bor Hasira, and they brought back Avner from Bor Hasira. My Bor Hasira, what is this location, Bor Hasira? It's not actually a location. It's really a hint to two things. Amar Rabbi Abba bar Kahana, Bor Vesira garmu lo la'Avner sheyareg. It is that Bor and Sira that caused Avner to be killed. What was that Bor and Sira? So Rashi tells us, it's Rashi 1, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 20, about 23 lines up in the narrow lines of Rashi. Bor v'sira gamru lo la'Avner shenerag. bor tzafachat mayim. The bor refers to a container of water. Shalakak David miroshosav shel Shaul, that he took away from the head of Shaul. Kishahaya yashin b'ma'agal. He was sleeping in the camp. Because Amar lahem David, and when David said to him, "Bnei mavis atem, you, the guards of Shaul, deserve to die. Shalosh amartem es adonechem, because you haven't been watching your king. Shekvar hayiti yachol lahorgo, because I could have killed him. So Rona efo chanis hamelech vayet safchas hamayim. Because look at this water that I have and this spear that I have that I took from Shaul while you all were sleeping. So hayalola Avner limchos b'Shaul the lomar lo ra'ei kama tzadikhu, because now Avner should have responded and said, "Listen to how righteous David is in the fact that he could have killed you, and he shelo harka, but he didn't kill you. Velo micha, but instead Avner did not object. Ella Amar Shema Echad Mibnei Hatzva Natanamlo. But rather he said, oh, maybe one of your soldiers gave these materials to him, but he didn't really have the chance to kill you. And what's the sirakutz? What is the reference to a thorn? So a sira kutz. The reference to sira is a kotz. That's not a word that's in the Gemara. That's the Rashi's explanation. It's a thorn. Kishe karat David et kanaf mi'ilo shel Shaul. David encountered Shaul in a cave and cut off the corner of his cloak, b'ma'ara, in a cave. And again, Avner should have realized that David was not a bad guy. And he should have said to Shaul, look how merciful he was about you. He didn't kill you when you were alone with him in the cave. And instead he did not learn any benefit. Ella Amar Shema Kisha Avartam Eitzel HaKotzim. Maybe when you came through a thorn bush, then Vahasiris Nichnas Echad Min HaKotzim B'Kanaf Me'ilcha, and it got cut off by one of the thorns, the corner of your garment. V'hu Haya Tamun Sham V'Chatko, and he took it and cut and was able to cut it off. So now it looks like he cut it off. But really, this wasn't David HaMelech being merciful. And so as a result, because Avner sort of ignored these opportunities to tell Shaul, listen, David isn't out for your death, but rather he encouraged Shaul to continue to pursue David. So as a result, that's why he was deserving of death. V'yateu Yoav el toch hashar l'daber ito b'sheli. And then Yoav took Avner to the gate in order to speak with him in peace. So what is the gate referred to? Amar Rabbi Yochanan shedanu din Sanhedrin. He took him to the Sanhedrin. He judged him the way the Sanhedrin would judge. Amar lei, he said to him, my time a katlei la'asael. Why did you kill my brother Asael? And Avner responded, Asael rodev haya. Asael was a pursuer. But you could have killed him you could have saved him yourself by just hitting him in one of his limbs. You didn't need to kill him by maiming him. No, I didn't think I was going to be able to do that. But you were able to get right in this fifth rib. And you wouldn't have been able to do it in some other limb. Of course you could have. So that was the conversation that had happened at the time. And that was, of course, the conversation that we just heard Yoav tell Benayahu when we talked about it in connection with Yoav's own death. So, L'daberi to Basheli, what does it mean that he spoke with him, Basheli? Again, Basheli on some level means it's suggested that it means in peace, but Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, Al Iske Shalu. It means in connection with the word shalu. And that word, if we take a look at the top line of the wide lines of Rashi, al iske shalu, lashon shal na'alecha. It's sort of like we have in Parsha Shmos, where Hashem tells Moshe that he needs to take off his shoes. Sha'al sha'alo ba'arma. What did he do? He asked him in a trickery manner, Yivama gedamta hecholetzes. He was as if he was trying to learn something together. A woman whose husband has died without any children and is now going to have to marry or do chalitza with his brother. How does she do chalitza if she doesn't have hands? If she's gadamta? So hitchil shocha milafanav. So what did Avner do? Avner bowed down in front of Yoav. Umar Ehu kachi choletzes b'shineha. And he showed how this is how she would remove somebody's shoe with her teeth. And so now as a result, the guy's prone in front of him, right? Avner is now prone in front of Yoav. So what did Yoav do? Shvahu shalach karbo v'hargo k'diksiv b'chaguraso asher b'matnav u'b'na'alo asher b'raglav. That it specifically says in Melachim how he put the blood of war on his belt that was on his hips and on his shoes that were on his feet. So it was right there that he killed him. So Vayakeu Sham HaChomesh, and Yoav struck him in that same location. Rabbi Yochanan B'Dofen Chamishit, in that fifth rib, Makom Shemara V'Chaved Tuluyin Bo, that place where the gallbladder and liver are located. V'Heishiv Hashem Es Damo Al Rosho, and then Shlomo. Okay, so now we go back to the story of Benayahu and Yoav, and it says that Shlomo says back to Benayahu after he tells him the whole response that Yoav had, go and kill him. Asher paga b'shnei anashim tzadikim v'tovim mimenu, because he actually killed two people who were more righteous and better than he, meaning that Yoav was worse than both Avner and Amasa. So Tovim, they were better. Shahayu Darshan Akin Varakin, because both Avner and Amasa would clarify how we use Ach and Rak. V'hulo Darish, but Yoav failed to do it. Tzadikim Shehein Bapeh V'lo Asu, because they, basically, in addition, not only were they able to Doresh the Ach and the Rak in order to show that they were doing the right thing, that Avner and Amasa were doing the right thing, and Yoav failed to do that, but they were also more righteous. Avner and Amasa were more righteous because when they were commanded to do something by the king, they refused to obey because there was something wrong with what they were asked to do. Whereas Yoav bi'igeres asa, he didn't even get it directly from the mouth of the king. He got a letter when he was asked to send Uriah to the front of the battle in order to kill him so that David HaMelech could have Bathsheba, and he obeyed it. So as a result, that's the inappropriate, and so he was less good. V'Amasa lo nishmar b'chereb asher biyad Yoav. But Amasa did not guard himself against the sword that was in Yoav's hand, because again, Amasa thought that no. Okay, so why? What is that referring to? Amarav shelo chashado. He never suspected that Yoav would want to kill him. Via kaver b'veiso b'midbar. When Yoav died, it says that he was buried in his house in the desert. So what does it mean? Atu Beso Midbarhu? Was his house really in a desert? Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, no. Kamidbar, his house was like a desert. Ma Midbar Mufkar Lakol, just as his house was, just as the Midbar, the desert, is available for anyone to go into. Af Beito Shel Yoav Mufkar Lakol. So too the house of Yoav was available for anybody to go into. Davar Acher, or alternatively, Kamidbar, what does it mean like a desert? Ma midbar menuka megazel va'arayos. Just as a desert, there's no robbery or immoral behavior there because there's nobody there. So too, af beso shel Yoav menuka megazel va'arayos. So even though we've just said that Yoav wasn't as great as Amasa and Avner. In fact, he was still a great person. He did a lot of good things, even though he was eventually deserving of death because he had rebelled against the king. But Yoav Yechayeh as Shar Ha'ir, and Yoav brought to life the rest of the city. Amr of Yehuda, Afilo Monine B'Tzachanasa Ta'im Paris Lahu. That even the goods, the small fish that were really tasty, he would distribute those to the poor. Meaning, it wasn't as if he would just get whatever the cheapest food is for the poor. He would even get nicer food for the poor. So Hadran Alach Nigmar Adin, Hadran Alach Nigmar Adin, Shahadran Alach Nigmar Adin. We finish with our stories. And now we begin the next chapter, and the next chapter details the 4 methods of potential execution as we begin Mem Tet Amud Bet. So Arba Mises Nimsaru Levasin. There are 4 kinds of killings that have been handed over to the Beit Din for them to do. Skila, stoning, we've talked about that, and we're going to see at the end of this Mishnah that we're going to reference back all of those procedures that we saw in the last chapter, because that was the details of how one engages in skila. Sreifa, burning. Hereg, which is literally killing, but it refers to using a sword in order to behead somebody. V'chenek, and strangulation. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, no. Sreifa, skila, chenek, v'hereg. 1 second, it's burning, stoning, strangulation, and beheading. Well, 1 second, what's the difference between them? You're saying the exact same 4, but it's a different order. And we are going to see tomorrow, first thing, that the order makes a big difference, and that the order is about which is the most severe. The first item on the list is the most severe, and the last one on the list is the least severe. And so they differ as to the precise order. And then we say, Zu mitzvahs haniskalin. We've already said this is how one engages in skila. That's, Rashi explains, Zu mitzvahs haniskalin. Shipirashnu, Bipirkin, the second wide line at the top. This is what we said in the Pirkin de Belial, in the prior chapter. Beis haskila haya gvoa shtei chamos v'chulu. That the house where they engaged in skila would have to be 2 stories high, or 2 people high. Umishum dibai lemasne mitzvahs hanisrafin v'haneragin v'hanechnakin. And since we're about to tell us how we engage in the burning and the beheading and the strangulation, we're going to say Ketzad Hadar, how we go about it, v'nakat lahai. So then we're going to say also, we also want to cover stoning as well. And so we reference back to that stoning. So what does the Gemara say? So first, the Gemara is going to say that and highlight that actually order matters. Okay, and so we're going to see that first Rava is going to say something, and then we're going to have a series of other people who add additional situations when order matters. So Amar Rava, Amar Rav Schora, Amar Rav Huna, Kol Makom Sheshanu Mechachamim Derech Minayin. Anytime when the rabbis taught a list of items, Ein Mukdam Umuchar, the first and the last item, it doesn't matter. The order is not particular. Chutz Meshiva Simanim, except for when it comes to the 7 things that 7 kinds of items that they used to clean and evaluate whether something was blood or not. That there were 7 cleansing agents that were applied to stains to see if it was a blood. If it came out, then it was not blood. If it didn't come out, then it was blood. Ditnan. Because Shiva Samanim Avirun ala Kesem, that 7 different items are applied to a stain in order to determine if it's blood. And so this is, in connection with Nida, when a stain is found on a woman's undergarment. And so the question is it a blood or is it a dye? How do we determine? And so the Mishnah teaches a test that, and if the stain comes off after being treated by one of these agents, so then if it does come off, then it's blood. If it's not, so then it's considered to be a dye. But what are the 7 things? Rok tafel, first it's saliva, umei grisin, and then chewed beans, umei raglayim, urine, v'neser, that's a kind of cleansing agent, uboris, another kind of cleansing agent, kamulya, another, v'ashlach, and then ashlach, v'katani seifa, and it learned at the end of that Mishnah, ha'aviran shaloka sidran, if you applied them out of order, Osheheviran shiva asan ke'echad, or you apply all 7 of them at the same time. Lo asav lo klum, you haven't done the test at all, and so as a result, it's meaningless. And so again, if it comes off, then it's blood. If it does not, then it's from Madai. So Rav Papa Sava Mishmei de Rav Amar. So Rav Papa, the elder, said in the name of Rav, Af Arba Misos. So too our Mishnah. Our Mishnah referenced 4 kinds of Misa. The order matters. Midikam Maflig, Rabbi Shimon, Shma Mina Dafka Tani. Because Rabbi Shimon basically disputes the order, and that the only argument is the order. Shma Mina, it's clearly that the order matters. V'idach, why did Rav Schora, who said in the name of Rav Huna, why did he not list our Mishnah as an exception? V'plukta lo kai mairi. So yes, he 100% agrees that our Mishnah, the order matters. But in our Mishnah, there's a machlokus about the order. And so as a result, he's highlighting that there is one location where the order matters in which there is no machlokus, and that's with the 7 cleansing agents. So Rav Papa Amar, another rule, Af Seder Yoma, so too the order of the procedures of the day of Yom Kippur. Detanan kol maaseh Yom Kippurim hamurim al haseder, because we say that everything in the Yom Kippur service is done in the order. Im hiktim ma'aseh lechaveiro lo asav lo klum, and if you take out the order, if you do something in the wrong order, you've not done anything. V'idach, well, what about Rav Schora and Rav Papa? Why didn't they include this as one of the items where the order matters? Because Hahu chumra ba'alma. Rashi explains, what does it mean by chumra ba'alma? It's not that it means that the order doesn't matter by Yom Kippur. Everybody agrees the order matters by Yom Kippur. But the point is that it isn't an order of importance. In our case, in the 2 of our cases, the strengthening of the items is either going up or going down, and there's a prioritization in the cleansing agents, and there's a prioritization in the death penalties. But when it comes to the order on Yom Kippur, yes, the order matters, but it is not about this item being more important or less important than the next item. The order doesn't matter in terms of the importance. Okay, so Rav Huna braid to Rav Yoshua Amar, another situation where order matters. Af Seder Tamid. So too, the daily sacrifices have to be brought in a specific order. Tikatani Allah, Zeu Seder Tamid, because we specifically say that this is the order of the Tamid. The Idach, well, first of all, the 2 first opinions, Rav Schora and Rav Papa, would say, well, the order with respect to Korbanot, just like on Yom Kippur, it's not a prioritization in terms of which is better or which is worse. It's an order that matters, but it's not an order that determines importance. So, but Rav Papa, who quoted us that the order of Yom Kippur matters, why didn't he also mention the order of the daily sacrifices? Hahula mitzvah ba'alma. No, because Rav Papa does not think that the order is crucial. That actually the order, while Yom Kippur, you have to have that the same exact order, or if you don't do the right order, it's all no good, and you have to do it again. But when it comes to the Korban Tamid and the sacrifices, there, if you do it out of order, according to Rav Papa, it's still okay. Salah Puke, so now we said that in all of these cases, I think we came up with a total of 4 cases that we had an order that really matters. But what is something where an order is given where it doesn't matter? So it comes to exclude the situation of chalitza. Ditnan mitzvahs chalitza. What's the order of chalitza? Bahu uvimto lifnei beistin. The brother and the yavama come to the court. Hayu Nostin and the widow, the deceased brother's wife, widow. Hayu Nostin lo etza hahogenes lo. The court talks to him about what's appropriate, as we saw when we learn Maseches Yevamos, that they talk to him about, maybe she's too old for you, maybe she's too young for you, etc. Shenemar v'karu lo ziknei iro v'dibru elav, because that's what it means when the Torah says in Dvarim Perek Hey Pasuk Chet that the elders of the city are going to speak to him. V'hi omeres, and then she says, Man yivami. Me'ain Yivami, excuse me, my Yivami refuses to marry me. V'hu omer lo chafatzi l'kachta, and he admits, yes, I don't want to take her, I don't want to marry her. Uvashon hakodesh hayu omer. They have to say this in Hebrew. V'nigsha yivim to'elav, and then so the woman then approaches him le'inei zakanim in front of the elders, in front of the court. V'chaltza na'alo, and she takes off his shoe. V'yarka b'fanav, and she spits in front of him. Ro kanir l'dayanim, and it's got to be, and that is all from the verse. Again, this is all from the pasuk. This is, I think, the same pasuk. And the spit needs to be visible to the judges. V'ansa v'amra, and then she says, Kacha yaseh le'ish. This is what happens to somebody who doesn't build up the house of his brother. V'nikra shemo b'Yisrael, and then his name shall be proclaimed in Israel. V'amar Rav Yehuda, mitzvahs chalitza kora v'korei choletzes v'rokekes v'kora. That the order, the specific order is she says something, he says something, she removes the shoe, she spits, and she says something. V'havinan ba, and we said regarding that, makamash malan. What is this? What is it teaching us? Why does Rav say this? Masnisin he. This is a specific Mishnah. Hakamash malan mitzvah hachi. What he's saying is that the best way to do it is in this particular order. The apich leislanba. But if the order changed, that's okay. So Tanya Nami Hachi, and we have a brisa that says the exact point. Bein shehiktim chalitza l'rakika, whether she spat before, whether she removed the shoe before the spitting, or rakika l'chalitza, or she did the spitting before the removal of the shoe. Masha asa asui, whatever was done was done. The chalitza still works. So that shows the order doesn't matter. And so when we say that the order matters, for example, as in our Mishnah, the order doesn't matter in the Mishnah dealing with chalitza. Lapuke maha, and another situation where the order doesn't matter. Titanan, we have the following Mishnah. This is a Mishnah in Yoma. Kohen Gadol mishamish bishmona kelim, that the Kohen Gadol wears 8 garments. The hedjos ba'arba, and the regular Kohanim, when they are doing the service, they wear 4. The kesones, a tunic, b'michnasayim, the breeches, b'mitznefes, a hat, b'avneit, a belt. And Mosif Alei and Kohen Gadol. So those are the 4 that a regular Kohen wears. And Mosif Alei and Kohen Gadol, the Kohen Gadol also wears choshen, a breastplate, the ephod, the insert, umeil, a cloak, the tzitz, and the plate on his forehead. The Tanya, minayin shelo yehe davar kodem michnasayim. How do I know that the order in this Mishnah is not correct, and that you actually have to put the michnasayim, the pants, on first? It's because Shnamar umichnasei vad you al bisaro. The point is that the michnasei vad, these like the breeches, the pant-like structure needs to be on his flesh. That needs to be effectively his undergarment, and so he needs to have that put on first. And that is not the order that was detailed in this Mishnah. And so that is an indication that this Mishnah order doesn't matter. V'tana nami v'tana my taima aktame l'ketonet. So why did the Tana of the Mishnah mention the tunic first? Mishum de akneme kra, because the Torah mentions its first. Ukra my time aktme. Well, one second, why did the Torah mention it first? Mishum de machasya kula gufe adifa lay. Because if you ask somebody, what is this person wearing? Meaning what's covering most of their body, the tunic is covering most of their body. And so as a result, that's the thing that's going to be mentioned first. So with that, we now have gotten to the 2 dots. And from there, we will pick up with the details of the prioritization of stoning, burning, etc., and why it matters. And looking forward to learning and continuing that discussion, God willing, tomorrow.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
Yes.